Hey everybody, in lieu of the podcast being on pause right now, I decided to do a crazy story time. Right now, I am in therapy and we're kind of rehashing some of the events in my life that led me to this PTSD diagnosis. Um, just gonna talk about it. I'm not a person that talks a lot. I think maybe two people know this story because probably the person that was there and one other person that I told later in life. So yeah, I'm not a person that likes to talk a lot. So key things in this story. Number one, if you know me from the South End, you know my mother and you know like that she's super duper duper overprotective to the point that like during this time I was like about 15 and I was only allowed to go to the store with her permission or like hang out in front of my house with my group of friends. I had to be within earshot of her. So like that's number one. Number two, there are two other parties in this story that are like main characters, I guess you would say. I'm gonna name those two characters Kendra and Roger because that's just what I came up with. It's sophomore year. Well, freshman year. I was a freshman because my birthday's in January, so I just turned 15. It was still cold outside when this happened. So freshman year, like I'm not from Evanston originally. I am from the city, so I didn't go to school here until high school, and so I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was like super desperate for friends. So I would kind of like hang out with anybody. So I met this girl in my remedial math class, and she was cool, or whatever. So hey, I'm gonna hang out with her. Um, so we hang out. We're like building a friendship, getting to know each other, or whatever. And she's pretty cool. She's kind of like tomboyish. So we're kind of opposite because I'm very girly, as you can see all this freaking pink. So like it was like a nice balance. And like a couple months into us hanging out, like she invited me to kick it with her one time. And I'm like, okay, well, on the way home, I'm thinking like, what am I going to tell my mom to get out of the house? Because it's a weekday. So normally it's a no for her. It's a weekday and it's cold outside. Like it's like February or whatever. So I'm thinking of an excuse. The best I could come up with is like I have a project to do or whatever with this individual. So I beg my mom when she gets home from school, from work. I beg her, please, mom, I gotta do this project or whatever. Please, 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 can I please, go? And she's like, well, since it's for school, go ahead. So this girl, like we had cell phones at the time. So the girl's texting me like, oh, you're gonna come to this address. So like I looked the address up and it's under the viaduct. I used to live on the south end, so I used to live on Custer and Mulford. So there's a viaduct there. If you walk under that viaduct, you're in Chicago. That particular area they call the jungle. And I'm not allowed to go over there. Like everybody could kick it at Triangle Park except for me. Or whatever. My mom's like, no. So I walk, I find the address, and it's like a courtway building. It has three entrances. So I go upstairs and my friend is there and it's a boy from school's apartment that I had seen around, but I didn't really know well because he was like a transfer student from I think either Sin or Sullivan or whatever. So I go in and red flag number one that should have made me take my ass home was it was like a funny smell in the apartment. It had like a booty smell, like with like a sulfur. So what I know now is that they were cooking crack. At the time, like I didn't know that was what was going on. I'm like, his house smells or whatever. So the lady that let me in the door, I take it as his mom. She's a big burly woman with like locks. Like if we could give her a name, we're gonna name her Big Barb. She's Big Barb. Like you would want her on your side in prison. Okay, so she's there. There's a skinnier guy there with like long locks, which I now know is they were a couple. That was the boy's dad or whatever. And it's the boy, Roger, we'll call him, and Kendra. And they're sitting on the couch, you know, like everything's relaxed. The mom's super, Big Barb's super nice. You know, offers me something to drink, you know, and the whole nine. Obviously, I'm not going to drink anything out of there because it smells like Howard and McCormick. So, you know, I'm like awkward. I'm sitting on the couch. Like, I'm not really a person that is like super talkative, especially around people that I don't know. You know, and I didn't know him. So, I didn't even really know why she invited me to this person's crib. I thought we were going to be kicking it at her house for this made up project. So, Big Barb tells Roger, hey, take your company in your room because I have some clientele coming up. Clientele. Okay, so he's like, okay. And we go into his room. It's a nice room or whatever. It's, you know, comfortable. So I sit down on the bed. She sits down on like a beanbag thing or whatever, and he's standing. So he offers us some pink panties, which is like a drink that he had made up that consisted of like some pink juice with a blue top and vodka. Like, I think it was like cheap vodka. At this time, I wasn't drinking. Like, I hadn't had my first drink yet. I had tried pot, but I didn't really like it because it made me laugh a lot and my face was hurting. I didn't like the shit. So, so we're in the room and we're there maybe like 5 minutes, just making like small talk. And Roger goes over to the closet and pulls out a Glocky. And he holds it to Kendra's head. And he looks at me and says, if I blow your friend's brains out, it's gonna really fuck up your night. And at this point, I'm just like, what the fuck did I just walk into? This is what my black ass get for lying. This is why my mom don't let me come outside or whatever. And I'm just like really taken aback. I had seen a gun before, but like not that up close and personal and not in these circumstances. So it was a bit overwhelming for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was super caught off guard. So I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? And he's like, oh, your friend stole some work from me and you just happened to show up at the wrong time, wrong place. Or whatever, and I'm like, work? Like, what the fuck? Like, somebody like fill me in. Like, I've only been here like maybe 12 minutes at this point, and it's already like guns being pulled out. So I'm just like, okay, or whatever, and I'm like this, you know, because I don't know, that's what they say to do when people pull out guns, especially police. So he bursts out laughing. He like totally like switches this mean character off and bursts into laughter. And my Kendra is sitting there just like stunned that he did this. Like, oh my God, this man just pulled a whole gun out. So he's like, oh, I'm just fucking with you. I just wanted to show you my gun. Like, my dad just bought this. Blah, 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 blah. Or whatever. And Kendra's like, okay, cool. You know, I think we're gonna go. So he walks us downstairs or whatever, and Kendra's so calm. So I'm like, oh my God, you know that he just put a gun on you. Are you okay? Kendra says, don't trip. I will never forget those 2 words. Don't trip. She goes over to the opposite, to the left side of the building. I guess that would be like the second entrance, and she rings the bell. And when she rings the bell, I'm like, what the fuck? Or whatever. And she rings the bell, and somebody goes like, who is it? And she says, in the intercom, Roger pulled a gun. Why she said that, I don't know. Why? Because the next thing that happened did not warrant, like, I understand, you know, like, being scared and stuff, but a brief interruption from my stupid brother. So she rings the bell and like 9 niggas come out. When I say 9, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Niggas that look like they stand on the corner and get it. Like rough, tough looking niggas. So at this point, I'm just like, what the fuck? I've only been here by like 14 minutes, by the way. All this happened like in a very short span, maybe 14 minutes or whatever. And the leader of the pack says, what happened? And she proceeds to tell him, you know, what happened. And it goes up from there. Like, bro doesn't ring the doorbell. He pulls the door, goes up to the second floor, knocks on the door. Roger comes out. He drags Roger down the stairs by his locks, and they have him pinned up against the fence. And 9 niggas is taking shots. Everybody's just wailing on him. And I'm just standing there like, oh my God, I only been here 16 minutes. What the hell did I walk into? Like, I've never hanging out with Kendra again. She has me fucked up. I'm scarred for life behind this. So, like, they're asking him, like, why you pull a gun? And he's like, I was just playing with them. I was just playing or whatever. And I guess they didn't think it was funny. So a girl comes out and she's asking Kendra, you know, like, what happened? What happened? And Kendra's telling her, like, what happened. And, like, she gets enraged. She goes over and she, like, steals on Roger, like, or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God. And they have him pinned up like he's on the cross. Just like, oh my God. So she goes back over and she tells Kendra, you hit him. Kendra hits him. She tells me, you hit him. And I say, well, he didn't do nothing to me, man. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I just walked into. I'm supposed to be over here doing a project. So like, if you don't hit him, I'm going to hit you. And then Kendra interferes and is like, oh, that's my friend. Like, she is square. She just came over here because I told her to. So they kind of leave me out of it. But we go to school with this boy. So, like, I seen this. And I'm, like, traumatized. So the next day I see her at school and I'm like, you know, are you cool? Is everything okay? And she's just like, yeah. And I kind of, like, stopped hanging out with her because that was, like, a little bit too much. It was sensory overload. I didn't see Roger in school for a couple of days, probably letting his shiner heel up because, like, they whooped that boy, like, hustle and flow DJ style. They whooped his ass. Like, I feel sorry for him to this day. Like, what he did was stupid, but, you know, boys do stupid stuff. Like, we were teenagers, you know, and the gun probably was empty. It was a high point. Bitch wasn't gonna let off anyway. But at the same time, I'm sure that taught him a really valuable lesson. Never pull guns out on girls and accuse them of stealing crack. Have a good night, everybody.